What's up YouTube, it's Heretic here, welcome back. Today we're going back to the days of Base, Jungle, and Fossil. Yep. So this is a deck I played actually in the Sponge era of that format, which for those of you guys who don't know, that means more like the Base Set 2 era. It's after movie promo Mewtwo was released into the scene. And I was playing Alakazam, and with movie promo Mewtwo running around, it's just, that card just destroys Alakazam decks, so we're going to profile Alakazam for Base and Jungle here pretty soon, but for right now, we're looking at a Base 2 era deck, and this is a basically a stall deck that I kind of turned to aggro by swapping out Alakazam in favor of Base Set Venusaur and changed some of the Pokemon to go with it. So we're going to go ahead and look at this was a lesser-known archetype back in the day called VenuCenter. So we're going to start with 4 Bulbasaurs. He's your stepping stone to Venusaur. That's really the only reason you play him. But he's kind of nice, too, because if you go up against Mr. Mime, you do the exact 20 damage for 2 grass, which is pretty easy to do in this deck. So, I mean, and we play 3 Venusaurs. I found that 3 is sufficient enough since we're not really relying on getting it second turn all the time like Rain Dance does with Blastoise. Next we have one of our main attackers, which is Scyther. We have 4 copies of Scyther, and I like Scyther more in this deck even than I do in Haymaker, because we run Grass Energy, so we actually get access to Swords Dance, and then if they don't energy removal, you can just double colorless turn 2 and slash for 60. If they do, you just attach and Swords Dance again. It's not that big a deal. Free Retreat is awesome, 70 HP basic, solid, all the same reasons everybody else loved this card. It's pretty lit, not gonna lie. Next is probably my favorite attacker in the deck, 2 Ditto. And this is a really fun card because the original Ditto, when it becomes your active Pokemon, it's treated as an exact copy of your opponent's active Pokemon. So, and also any energy attached to Ditto is basically rainbow energy. It counts as energy of any type. So you can use Venusaur's Energy Trans ability, which is like the original version of what we have now in Aromatisse and all that stuff. It lets you move your grass energies from one Pokemon to another as often as you like during your turn. So you can just move all your grass energies over to Ditto, and they'll provide whatever, and then you can just use your opponent's attacks right back at them. Or you just throw a double colorless on them and do the same thing. And then we also have 2 Chanseys. Since Venusaur lets us move our energies around, we can just kind of sponge with Chansey, and 120 HP is nothing to laugh at, really. It's pretty darn ridiculous. Highest HP basic in the game at the time. And if you really feel the need to, you can just go on a suicide mission with Double Edge, take something out for 80 damage, and of course you do 80 to yourself, which sucks, but that's why it's a suicide mission. If you don't feel like your opponent can do a big enough attack right back at you, you can actually just pretty fearlessly Double Edge and then just move all your energy in Pokemon Center the next turn. So that's our Pokemon lineup. Really, just you get Venusaur out, you know, sometimes it's second turn, sometimes like turn 3, turn 4, whatever. Like, this deck gets a pretty consistent turn 2 or turn 3, which is more than enough. So anyway, we're going to go into our trainers here. We got 4 Professor Oaks. This is actually something I started with. When I first built this deck, I did not have bills on me at the time, because I had left some of my base stuff at home. So I was actually really surprised when I found out that this deck could function without Bill, simply by running 4 copies of Professor Oak. So that's what we're going with here. Next we got 4 Pokemon Centers. The original Pokemon Center, for those of you guys who don't know, this card is Max Potion on everything. It heals all damage counters from every one of your Pokemon that has damage on it, and then you have to discard all energy attached to all of the Pokemon that you healed from. So you use Venusaur to move all of your grass energy to something that doesn't have any damage. You Pokemon Center, and then you just move it all back. Next is 3 Item Finders. This is just Junk Arm on steroids, or Dowsing Machine, I guess. Discard 2 cards, put a trainer card from your discard pile in your hand. 3 Computer Search, back when you could play multiples. 3 Pokemon Breeders. It's just rare candy. Lets you skip from Bulbasaur to Venusaur. So that's fun. 3 Gust of Wind, because it's nothing like a trainer card that says draw 1 prize, essentially. Got 2 Pokemon Traders. This is Pokemon Communication, in a nutshell. Send one of your Pokemon from your hand back to your deck, grab a different one. So it helps out a lot in older Stage 2 decks, when you can just send something back, grab like the basic for your Stage 2, or just Stage 2 itself. Next is 2 Switch. This is a card that, despite seeing more play over the last few years, actually didn't see that much play back in base, outside of maybe Alakazam decks. But I feel like since we're running Venusaur, which is a stage 2, and Scoop Up would only bring the Bulbasaur itself back to our hand due to the way it's worded, I think Switch is the superior choice here over Scoop Up. And Mr. Fuji, which is the other alternative, which would shuffle the Pokemon and all cards attached to it into the deck, also only works on bench Pokemon. So we need a way to get something out of the active, which pretty much that means they probably gusted up Venusaur. So we need to have some way to do that, and Switch is really the only option here that's really reliable and keeps it in play. We play 1 energy retrieval, because energy removal is a thing, and we kind of just want to have our energy on the board. And we run a lot of it, so we're going to get into that now. We run 4 double colorless, because Scyther, Ditto, and Chansey can all abuse it. Then we got 4, 8, 12, 16 grass energy. So a total of 20 energy cards, which this was actually fairly common back in these days. So that's the list. It might be a little bit slow setting up the first couple of turns against like Haymaker and stuff that, like the kind of decks that run heavy energy removals, but fortunately for us, most of those decks don't really hit that hard the first couple turns. Wigglytuff is really the one exception. So, you know, like Wigglytuff could be potentially a problem early on until you can get yourself set up. But if you can keep them from one-shotting, which pretty much just means wall with Chansey, then you can usually be okay for a couple turns to get some energy on the board, and then maybe just use Ditto to hit their Wigglytuff, or could also just kind of sit a Scyther, or if you can get yourself Solar Beaming, that's probably the best way to do it. Because they can lay down 60 damage, but then you can just move your energy off of your active and just heal it and make them, put them in 2 turns away from a knockout again. But otherwise, yeah, that's VenuCenter, and I'll see you guys again soon. Cheers!